Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Jim Knotts, President and CEO of the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Fund, and I'll be your Master of Ceremonies today for our annual Veterans Day ceremony at the Wall. It's my pleasure to be the first to welcome you to our annual observance, and it's always great to see so many people live and in person here in the audience, but I actually acknowledge the fact that we are being viewed by tens of thousands of people online as well. So welcome to you all. Today we will commemorate the anniversaries of two very special components to the Vietnam Veterans Memorial. This year marks the 35th anniversary of the Three Servicemen statue and the 15th anniversary of the In Memory plaque. Before we begin the formal program, I would like to recognize all of the Gold Star family members we have with us here today. The mothers, fathers, wives, sons and daughters, siblings, nieces, and nephews, all those who have experienced the loss of a loved one and know all too well the sacrifices that our military families make. And finally, to those still waiting for a full accounting of their loved ones, thank you all for joining us. And I'd like to take a moment to thank the Wall volunteers and the staff of the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Fund for all they do year-round to honor our veterans and preserve the memorial. Thanks to the small army also of volunteers around the country who are finding photos for our online Wall of Faces. You'll see several people in the audience out at the Wall and certainly on our stage here today in yellow and black uniforms. Usually they have yellow hats. Those are the National Park Service volunteers. They are the face of this memorial to about 5 million visitors a year. They serve in lots of capacities. Many of them are Vietnam veterans. Some of them have served helping visitors here at the Wall for more than 30 years. They serve in lots of capacities. You're going to hear one of them help with the Pledge of Allegiance today. There are a couple who actually are on the board of directors of the Memorial Fund. They're just amazing folks, so please give them a round of applause. As we begin our program, I call your attention to our POW MIA chair, which occupies a place of dignity and honor on our stage. Let us always remember and never forget their sacrifices as we continue to work toward the fullest possible accounting of our missing. And since today is Veterans Day, I'd like to ask all of our veterans in the audience to stand as you can and be recognized. Outstanding. That's just great. Today is your day, and on behalf of the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Fund, I would like to thank you all for your service and offer you our welcome home. Now, please stand as you are able for the presentation of the colors. The colors will be presented today by the Armed Forces Color Guard from the Military District of Washington. Color Guard, present the colors. Singing our national anthem, we're so pleased to have with us here today a very accomplished performing artist and musical educator. With piano accompaniment from Eileen Cornett, please welcome Dr. Laura Kafka-Price.
See by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight celeste gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Please remain standing. Now please join in the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Brian Murphy, Gold Star Brother and our 2019 Libby Hatch Volunteer Award winner. Remain standing as the color guard retires the colors and a ceremonial honor guard from the 1st Cavalry Division takes its place above the wall.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated. Thank you to our Joint Color Guard, to Dr. Price, and also to Mr. Murphy. Now I'd like to introduce you to our partner in today's ceremony. Each year, the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Fund hosts this ceremony in partnership with the National Park Service. Please welcome Jeff Reinbold, Superintendent of the National Mall and Memorial Parks.
Good afternoon. On behalf of the National Park Service, it is my pleasure to welcome you on this Veterans Day to the Vietnam Veterans Memorial. To our visitors, distinguished guests, families and friends, and especially all the veterans and members of our armed forces, we are deeply honored that you chose to be here this afternoon. The Vietnam Veterans Memorial is one of the most visited sites on the National Mall, and in fact, in all of Washington, D.C. And certainly, it is one of the most iconic. We in the National Park Service are honored to be entrusted with its care and with the care of the Vietnam Women's Memorial, which recognizes the 265,000 women, all volunteers, who served during the war. I'd like to thank our partners in this endeavor, the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Fund, and especially its President and Chief Executive Officer, Jim Knotts, and Diane Carlson Evans, founder of the Vietnam Women's Memorial Foundation. Those two individuals and the organizations they represent are instrumental in helping us maintain these memorials for the benefit of future generations. But our responsibility is not just to care for this special place, but also for the people who visit. Our rangers and volunteers help people understand the wall and the war, but maybe even more importantly, they listen. This hit home for me this past Memorial Day. It was my first here as the superintendent. After the ceremony, I struck up a conversation with a veteran from my home state of Pennsylvania. He told me about getting his draft notice, about being a kid thrown into this foreign land. and then about what happened while he was there and when he returned. He thanked me for listening and began to walk away, and then stopped and came back and admitted that he had never told some of those stories to anyone else. Or I remember a gentleman I met the same afternoon from Alabama who confided that he had saved up several years to bring his young daughter here so they could find her uncle's name together. And then he proceeded to tell me about his brother, and I will admit in a way that made his daughter blush, but she sure learned a lot about her uncle that afternoon. It's an incredible responsibility, and I want to thank the National Park Service staff, and as Jim mentioned before, especially our volunteers, some whom travel great distances to be here, who care for this place and for the 5 million visitors who come here each year, many of whom are younger than the wall itself. On this Veterans Day, I encourage you to also visit the World War II Memorial or the Korean War Veterans Memorial or any of the other sites in D.C. that pay tribute to our veterans and tell the story of this country and its people. I hope you will find solace and inspiration not only in these memorials or in this wall, but also in the people who visit them. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent Reinbold. Today, as we commemorate the 35th anniversary of the Three Servicemen statue and the 15th anniversary of the In Memory plaque, I would like to take a moment to talk about the importance of each of these parts of the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Ceremony. Many of the visitors here to the wall don't understand that this site is actually made up of multiple memorials. The wall was dedicated in 1982. The Three Servicemen statue and flagpole added in 1994. The Vietnam Women's Memorial was dedicated in 1993. And the In Memory plaque was dedicated in 2004 as the final component of the memorial site. Each piece is an important part of the memorial as a whole. The wall was built to honor all those who served in Vietnam, with the names of those who died there and remain unaccounted for inscribed on the wall. The Three Servicemen statue was added to the site to provide a heroic traditional depiction of those who served in Vietnam. The sculptor, the late Frederick Hart, once said, "You are supposed to see three soldiers, but there are lots of things I want you to feel as well. I want you to see that these are very young people. I want you to feel that they bore an excruciating burden." In creating the statue, his wife Lindy said he wanted the details of the sculpture to tell the story of a particular time and place. But more importantly, he sculpted every detail, every fold in the fatigues, every tensed muscle, every throbbing vein in tribute to the veterans who served and sacrificed. And I think we would all agree that the Three Servicemen statue has stood the test of time. Over the last 35 years, it has continued to be a powerful tribute honoring our Vietnam veterans. In late 1983, Diane Carlson Evans, a nurse who served in the Army in Vietnam, conceived of the idea to add a statue to the Vietnam Veterans Memorial site to honor the women who served. There are 8 women, all nurses, whose names appear on the wall. Of the 265,000 women who served during the Vietnam War, nearly 10,000 military women served in country during the conflict. Barred from combat, these women served in healthcare, communications, intelligence, and administrative positions. The Women's Memorial was dedicated in 1993. And when the wall was built, no one knew that Vietnam veterans were going to continue dying because of their service. But every year, thousands of veterans are dying from Agent Orange-related illnesses and post-traumatic stress disorder, which is why the In Memory plaque is such an important component of the memorial site. The effort to establish the plaque was really led by one individual, the late Ruth Coder Fitzgerald. Her brother John had served in Vietnam, returned home, and died of cancer in 1992. She made it her mission to add a plaque to this site that would honor veterans like her brother. After many years of effort and support from the Vietnam Veterans of America and many others, Congress agreed, and the in-memory plaque was dedicated in 2004. Over the last several years, AVVA, the Associates of the Vietnam Veterans of America, and the Memorial Fund, both nonprofits with no federal funding, worked together to have a new plaque installed that is raised and angled toward the visitor, making it more prominent. I am thrilled that the new and improved plaque was installed last November and rededicated this past Memorial Day. Our next speaker, Marsha Four, was here to participate in that rededication. Beyond the plaque, the in-memory program honors those who served, returned home, and later died as a result of their service. This past June, we added 534 Vietnam veterans to our in-memory honor roll, the most we've ever added in a single year. Our annual in-memory ceremony includes a reading of the names of the new honorees here in the place that our nation has set aside for Vietnam veterans. How many of you here have lost a buddy or a family member that was a Vietnam veteran? I encourage each of you to reach out to those families and tell them about this program so that they can identify their loved ones to the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Fund so that we can add them to our in-memory honor roll. Next, we always invite a speaker to talk on behalf of the Vietnam Women's Memorial. Marsha Four, who served as a nurse in Vietnam in 1969 and 1970, was awarded the Bronze Star for her service. After many years serving her fellow Vietnam veterans through the Vietnam Veterans of America organization, Marsha just recently retired. Please welcome my esteemed colleague, Marsha Four.
Good afternoon. I first want to take just a few minutes to thank Diane Carlson Evans and the Vietnam Women Veterans Memorial Foundation for inviting me to speak here today with you. I said to somebody just before I came up that I was afraid after all these years that we have been here, everyone that has spoken about the Vietnam Women's Memorial, what else would there be to say? They would be hearing the same thing over and over. And that individual reminded me that I was 72, and a lot of the people in front of you are also that old. They probably don't remember what anybody said before. I'm going to go back just about 32 years ago, back to 1987. I didn't even know there was a wall. This wall, I didn't even know it existed. I met up with somebody who said, there's going to be someone talking about the Vietnam Women's Memorial statue they want to build in Washington. Do you want to come and listen to it? You know, and I wasn't really crazy about getting myself back into the mix of Vietnam, and I figured I enlisted, I served, I came home, I moved on, period, over, done, let's go. But I went to hear this woman talk, and until that fate-filled day, I never really recognized myself as someone who could contribute to veterans, that I belonged, that I was a veteran. Some think that sounds very strange, but for a lot of women, it was not a strange feeling at all. If it were not for that 2-hour conversation I had and listened to, I would never have been able to fit back in to where I was supposed to be and discover exactly who I was going to be. It brought me to becoming a member of Vietnam Veterans of America, and it also allowed me to become a volunteer for the Vietnam Women Veterans Memorial Project, as it was called then. And that's how my involvement with veterans first began. I look back across, over your heads to the Women's Memorial, and those three very, very imposing figures. Some of you have passed by it or walked around it for years and years, but I want you to look down inside of yourself. Have you really looked into their eyes? Can you see in their eyes? What do you see in their eyes? Have you felt the emotion from their eyes, their body language? These three represented all of the women who served around the world during the Vietnam War. Most still remain very unrecognized, but not us, because they are all of us, as seen in and through those eyes of the three women that you may not have recognized. Some who do not know the history that made up the background for the placement of that statue, and it's a very significant and emotionally charged statue. But I say, nay, nay, it didn't just pop out of nowhere after a wish and bam, it appeared. It was a struggle at times. It almost seemed insurmountable. I remember being on phone calls. Oh, we got to do this, we got to do that. Let's go here, let's go there. Let's send that statue around. Let's raise some money. It was emotionally depleting, actually, over the course of all those years. Some called it a struggle. Some called it a fight. And others called it a war. Federal bureaucracy truly can be a mysterious door to walk through. But those who weren't enamored with the placement of this statue, and there were some, they had forgotten that we had already been in a war, so it was no problem. We'll take it on again. Our message was, join us or get out of the way. We were moving forward, and we knew exactly where we belonged. And we became very bold, and we would speak our heart, and we would to anyone who would listen. It was a very moving process. The word spread through towns and cities and states even. The volunteer strength grew with other veterans, with service organizations, with our local politicals. This was a massive undertaking. I don't think, unless you were involved or have been involved in these kinds of projects before, you can even comprehend what goes into the placement of something that we in our heart think, how simple could this be? This is where it's supposed to be. Why don't you get it? We all live through this struggle every day. And we watch this growth of movement toward trying to get this established. And it brought me back to thinking and remembering a song that Arlo Guthrie sang, Alice's Restaurant. And he said, if you get enough of them, you got a movement. And that we did have. We had a movement. And we had a cause. And we rode that out to the nth degree. Nothing was going to stop us. Because once we got started, we were like a freight train rolling along. And almost everybody did get out of our way. It didn't stop. We didn't give up or give in. Finally, after years of moving with all of this pressure, we earned the right to be here, even though we believed, as others should have, that we had earned the right to be here many years ago and many years before. This movement resulted in the formal dedication 26 years ago, where we joined our brothers the 3 fighting men, and ultimately being joined by the in-memory plaque. And as you just heard, the importance of that in-memory plaque to all of us. This is the ultimate fulfillment of our embrace of each other, held together forever by the wall, and its timeless example to the world of the sacrifice of war. The Vietnam Women Veterans Memorial was the impetus that brought the voice of women veterans to Washington and led women to a greater understanding of their united, mobilizing power. In coming together and in realizing our power, we could move forward on any front. And we did, looking at legislation, looking at regulations that could improve veterans' equality and benefits. This voice also caused the igniting of understanding the worth of the service and their ownership of being a veteran. So many women never had that within them until the Vietnam Women Veterans Memorial. With open hearts and selfless endeavors, we women veterans move forward and continue to serve within the wave of our movement. Thankful that we have laid down yet another layer in the historic foundation of the service of women veterans, and we are passing that on to the next generation of women veterans. Thank you for having me today.
Thank you, Marsha. It's now my pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker and one of my favorite people in the whole world, Brigadier General George Price. General Price's military career began with his commission through ROTC at South Carolina State University. He served at every level of command and staff, from platoon leader to assistant division commander, and from battalion staff to chief of staff, 1st U.S. Army. He served in both the Korean and Vietnam Wars and spent more than 12 years in overseas assignments. His decorations include the Bronze Star, Army Commendation Medal, the Purple Heart, and the Combat Infantryman's Badge with Star. General Price has 4 children. His 3 sons are all retired Army officers, and his son-in-law is a retired Marine. Together, they have 90 years of military service in their family. Now that's what I call a legacy of service. For VVMF, General Price has been with us since the very beginning. He played a key role in settling the controversy over the design of the memorial, and we very much appreciate his enthusiasm for the memorial over the years. Please welcome Brigadier General George Price.
Thank you very much. It's always a high honor to return home, meaning the memorial, and participate in a program that's designed to reinforce the purpose of this memorial and the place it plays in our country's history. First of all, I think we have to compliment the Dreamers, Diane Carlson Evans and Jan Scruggs, for having the courage of their convictions and no confusion between their convictions and their mission. And they inspired us beyond our own dreams. So we need to give them an accolade. I don't want to get spanked again by the Gold Star Mother, so I'm going to come up here and admit that I'm glad to have you with us. And so don't give me a tick mark now, because I acknowledge the fact that you played a great role also. To the older veterans that are here, it's going to be short because I know these medicines are going to kick in pretty quick. And we all going to be making some serious runs, so we might as well understand that this is going to be quite to the point. I think the quickest way to do this without embarrassing anybody is to go and refresh what it is we're all about. This is a nation of achievers. It's a nation of doers. It's a nation of people who care about each other and try to build a better world every day. You don't do that being laid back and not participating and not involved. I recall as if it was yesterday the enthusiasm that we had when the memorial was dedicated. There were people pulling off suits, these expensive suits, and painting their patches on the shoulders, coming out the woodwork like they'd been reinvented because their day had come, the day when they could admit that, yes, I served my country, and I'm not ashamed of it. I'm proud of it. I now have a place for me to go and reconcile myself. That's what I do. Their enthusiasm added another level of concern. And for this young architect whose dream was to abide by the rules established by the Memorial Fund, that the monument would make no political statement, but it would be there for those who made a choice at that point in time to decide the course that they wanted to have in the future as a part of our country. That was just, Marilyn is so great. She rearranged how the world now reviews memorials, not just this one. This is a godfather, I would call it, but her enthusiasm, her sensitivity, and all of this, and she was subjected to some remarks I won't repeat here, but that's part of what set me off, and it changed quickly. But the simple fact of the matter is, this young woman at 23 years old changed the way we do memorials and has given a new life for so many people because they know their sons, their daughters, their loved ones will never be forgotten, and the sacrifice that they made is in fact appreciated by their country. So I wanted to be sure we understood that as we acknowledge them on Veterans Day. When I thought of where we are now in the world, a certain phrase kept coming to life. Today is yesterday's tomorrow. Yesterday, we were celebrating the Vietnam veterans being able to come out of the closet. We'd passed through all the trauma of calling you baby killers and all that kind of stuff, and we'd reached the point where we all became a part of the fabric of our country. We could open the door and see all that stereo equipment we bought and all the other things that were identified with them, the watches, the jewelry. We had done more things with the economy than people ever realized that we came out with those Seiko watches, and you could tell when somebody served by the kind of watch they had on. You had the Casio group, you had your Seiko group, and then you had some others, all representing their era and now. And we still had a country that couldn't quite seem to get it together until we came out and showed them the way. That's what we're all about, and we're continuing to do that. So where are we now? Here it is, 2010 almost, 20 rather. And look, I'm old enough to have to make that mistake. Shoot me. So it's almost 2020, but the issue here is, today is yesterday's tomorrow. Have we done it better this time around? Have we inspired the young people to be involved? We have them deployed around the world, and there should be no confusion where they are, that they have our full support. We don't have to make the decision to send them there or not, but they represent us, they represent our flesh and blood, and we ought to give them everything they need to get the job done. And there should never be any confusion about that. In addition, we need to recognize that the contract through our oath of office that we take as members of the military is with the people of the United States of America. The United States military has never lost a war. The people have lost the will to give us the requirements to get it done. But we have always abided by that contract. We've never breached it, and it should stay that way. They serve the people of the United States of America. The first point you got to understand is, first you commit the country, then you commit the armed forces. You don't get that reversed. It's dangerous to do otherwise. I'm reminded of a song I recited at the dedication, and that was by Percy Mayfield, "Please send me someone to love." And it says, "Heaven is pleading with all mankind for understanding and peace of mind. And if it's not asking me too much, please send me someone to love. I lie awake nights and count the world and all its troubles. And its answer is always the same. If man don't put an end to this damnable dream, hate will put the world up in flames. What a shame." Now, just because I'm in misery, that don't mean I'm begging for sympathy. All I'm asking for is, please send me someone to love. Well, we have the great United States of America. That ought to be big enough for us to all love, care about, and make right, and do what's right by it. A little simple example would be, you ever think every day we get up, get in this monster we got, this rocket-charged thing we call a car, and we move along highways at breathtaking speeds, in and out of the traffic. Everybody interacting, strangers you don't know, people by ethnicity you say, I hate, I can't do this or the other. And you still put your life in their hands every day. Why can't we get along in the parking lot? You get in the parking lot, we start killing each other. Bomb blasting folks. We can do better than that, America, and I think the veterans have to set the example once again on how we do things right. We've welcomed those persons who did not serve in Vietnam who want to reconcile themselves at the wall. That were 19 legal reasons for you not to serve in Vietnam. Legal. You didn't have to go looking for an excuse. The excuse found you because it was a street clearing operation. The rules were designed to get those folks who were less well off than the others and then let them go and do the dirty work while the others stood at home singing the praises of themselves. Well, we corrected that and we got it back on track, and many of those people have been loyal and devoted supporters of the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Fund. Likewise, it was during the Vietnam era that we made some dramatic changes. We got a civil rights bill passed. We had high tech being developed at a rapid rate. Verizon and AOL and FedEx were all created during that period by Vietnam veterans. The issue here being, where there's a will, there's a way. And we still need somebody to send us someone to love. At the dedication of the Women's Memorial, I used a term from Lift Every Voice and Sing, and stony the road we trod, bitter the chastening rod felt in the days when hope unborn had died, yet with a steady beat has our weary feet strayed from the place for which our fathers died. We have come over a way that with tears have been watered. We've come treading a path through the blood of the slaughtered. And here down at last, here's where we stand, where the bright gleam of our star is cast. I thank you for your time. It's always a pleasure to be with you. America remains the greatest country in the world. We must continue to educate our youngsters on this is the one and only democracy that's going to be there now and forever. Today is yesterday, tomorrow. I guess we better get started on it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, General Price. Allow me to direct your attention to the representatives of several of our nation's leading veteran service organizations. I'd like to ask them to please come forward at this time as we prepare to lay the wreaths. For many years, these veteran service organizations have joined our tradition of laying wreaths at the Vietnam Veterans Memorial in honor of all those who served and sacrificed. While the wreath layers get into position, I'd like to share a few highlights of what's been a busy year for the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Fund. Recently, The effort to put a face to every name on the wall passed a major milestone. To meet our goal of finding a photo of every person on the wall, we now have less than 400 photos left. That means that our amazing volunteers have found more than 57,800 photos already. If you have photos of anyone on the wall, make sure they're part of our Wall of Faces. Our traveling exhibit, which we call The Wall That Heals, is wrapping up a fantastic 2019 tour this week at our final stop in Mississippi. We helped educate more than 300,000 visitors about the Vietnam War, including more than 20,000 students. In 2020, we'll be on the road from February to November, visiting 36 communities around the country. Our in-person and digital educational efforts are growing as well. We now have a tour guide working here at the Wall, giving an introduction and overview about the memorial to thousands of visitors. The Vietnam Veterans Memorial Fund website was relaunched in May, which provides free educational curriculum for teachers to use in their classrooms. And our education director has taken our traveling trunks to classrooms to give to students a hands-on lesson about our Vietnam veterans. Through all of these activities, and with all of our speakers, we maintain the commitment the Wall was built on, to never forget. I will now read the names of the organizations as they lay their wreaths. While the wreaths are being laid, you will hear bagpiper Chris Jackson play Amazing Grace. Today's ceremony will close with the playing of taps by Master Gunnery Sergeant Chris Ferrari of the President's Own United States Marine Band. If everyone could please stand as you are able. In the wreaths, National Park Service, Vietnam Women's Memorial, American Gold Star Mothers, Gold Star Wives of America, Sons and Daughters in Touch, 1st Cavalry Division Association, Vietnam Veterans Memorial Volunteers, Fifth Battalion, 7th Cavalry Association, Paralyzed Veterans of America, Operation Freedom Bird, Jewish War Veterans of the USA, AMVETS, Vietnam Veterans of America, National Dusters, Quads, and Searchlights Association, Associates of the Vietnam Veterans of America, Khe Sanh Veterans, Chickasaw Nation Elder Veterans, Veterans of Foreign Wars, Disabled American Veterans, F Troop, 8th Cavalry, Blue Ghost, Vietnam Veterans, Tan Son Association, 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock PTSD class, Washington, the American Legion, 28th Infantry Regiment Association, Black Lions, Verizon Veterans Advisory Board, 3rd Battalion, 8th Infantry, IV Dragoons, 25th Infantry Division Association, and all other organizations that are here with us today. Please remain standing until taps has been played and the National Park Service Honor Guard departs. This concludes our ceremony. Thank you for coming.